My work with Byron Katie has been or I should say, my work with the work of Byron Katie, which you can get for free at thework.com, has been the single biggest return on investment in the last year. So some years ago, I listened to all her books and felt 10% less depressed, but didn't want to actually do any of the work that she outlined. And, now it's reversed. I'm getting a 30% return on my discipline of doing the work. It's the most reliable way to create clarity and well-being and excitement about the future in the midst of turbulent things going on. And so I'm fascinated with how it does and doesn't dovetail with my work with beliefs and thoughts around Lazaris. I'll get into that a little bit later. But kind of here, I'll go through the process, which I've written down on a few pages, and kind of walk you through the how I dive into this. So the first thing, that I begin is I have a deep-seated sadness, a face of pain, rage, loneliness, and hate. I wonder what the roots of this state are. And what I'm referencing here is just in my face, in my muscles, in my tone, there's an identity that's heavy, that's tired, that's dying, that's tense, that's sore. Right? There's an identity, a pattern of thinking, feeling, speaking, doing, and being. And I go back to it. It's an anchor point. The identity, the pattern, is an anchor point. And so no matter what's going on in my life, money, good or bad, I anchor to that identity, that pattern, which is what, of course, egos do. And so within the framework of Byron Katie, all suffering is born out of believing, which is an attachment to a thought, right? So there's a thought out there: the world is good, the world is bad, the world is great, the world is sour. These are just billions of thoughts floating around. But they don't affect us until we attach to them. And we attach to them by believing them. That's the way the world is. That's who I am. That's who you are, right? And so immediately we attach to a thought. It becomes part of our identity, our pattern of thinking, which gives rise to feelings, which gives rise to attitudes and states of being. Immediately, we attach to a pattern. Thinking, feeling, speaking, doing, and being. It starts to shape us, and the other thing that's interesting is thoughts, when they become beliefs, believing the thought, are all self-referential. And what I mean by that is if you believe the world is bad, you will see bad things. And when you see good things, you will see that they're bad, right? You'll see that they're, you'll see that they're bad. So, so that's just, the way that I work. Like if I believe people are manipulative and they say, would you like a piece of cake? What are you after, right? Well, why are you giving me a piece of cake, right? So it's, you start looking through the lens of the belief and you find evidence. And then the belief gets stronger. It's self-referential. And so the identity becomes stronger, right, and more narrow. So that's kind of the paradigm, and so when I looked at the self-referential beliefs and thoughts around this, so the first thing I look at is parents will betray their children when expedient. Parents will betray their children when expedient. So what's this about? When I was younger, I noticed how much my parents were doing to rile my younger siblings up. I'm the oldest of 5. And they were all, Louise Hay fans, Lazaris fans, introduced me to Lazaris, so they're all into metaphysics and growth and, sent us to Waldorf schools. And so, on the surface, there's all this good stuff going on. But beneath the surface, like, what's all this about? Like, why are my siblings becoming more and more extreme in their behaviors? And I noticed something even more interesting, which is that pretty soon babysitters couldn't take care of my siblings because my parents had trained them to be, so obnoxious. And so they would ask me to babysit. And so I had to break the code. I couldn't, an older sibling, I'm only 2 years older than my sister. An older sibling does not automatically get respect. In America, it's 4 against 1. And so I needed to kind of look at the setup. So that the first thing I realized is I had to give them a 30-minute transition period from parental code to my code, because their adrenaline was too, crazy for 30 minutes. So my parents would leave. I would stay in my room for 30 minutes. Then I would go out and establish a rapport. And then I would ask, what would you like to do? How would you like to connect or do, or, for the time that we're engaged? Would you like to do any kind of activity together or something like that? And I said, I have just a couple of rules, right? No self-destructive or other destructive behavior, quiet, and no, demands and manipulation. But otherwise, do the things you would enjoy doing. And if you are well behaved, I will take you on a walk, or we'll go do an outing that you would enjoy doing. And that's the deal. And the first thing I had to break was the manipulation cycle, right? The tantrum cycle, because my parents had it keyed in that in order for them to get anything, they had to act out. And if they didn't act out, they wouldn't get anything, right? And so they all did their, various manipulations to get things, and I didn't respond at all. I remember my youngest sibling said, "I'm going to throw all of this food on the floor if you don't do this and this," And I said, "Well, okay, He said, "I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it." I said, "Great," So he threw all the food on the floor, and I said, "Okay, great. So now your food is on the floor, and you still haven't gotten what you wanted, but there's food now all over the floor, right? And so you want this and you want that, but first you have to clean up the food, right? And then you still have to do and take responsibility, for these things." And after that kind of initial code was broken, they were amazingly great, healthy kids. And so they would be happy, productive, get along well with each other. And they'd be so pleasant and enjoying themselves that they, would barely notice my parents coming back home. And then this would upset my parents. Something's wrong. Something we're not getting. Because my parents were into martyrhood around these horrible children ruining our lives, and of course you couldn't say that with peaceful, happy kids not acting out. So my parents would be quite annoyed by this, and would start, what's going on? Why is my siblings would remember, like, oh, we're supposed to be acting out terribly, and would rush around and start making noise and throwing things again, and then my parents would be comfortable, it seemed to me. And so because I noticed this consistently, and my parents were claiming to be so interested in metaphysics and growth and all that, my mother was a bit too delusional to attempt to talk with, right? Because she was a little bit too out there to notice when she was talking nonsense. But my father, had enough mental discipline that, he would grasp his own hypocrisy or paradoxes, etc. And so I approached my father and I sat him down and I said, this is what happens, right? You and mom do this, 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 and this, and this. You bring out the absolute worst in the siblings, and then you roll your eyes and you blame them, right? You turn them into the big burden so that you can complain about it. But that's not their nature. That's not who they are. And that's never who they are with me. Right? Hour after hour after hour, they're peaceful, kind, and I don't see all the antics you love to complain about until you get home. And my father kind of he did, it just said nothing, right? And then he avoided me from that point forward, right? And then he started turning the siblings against me, like, Dane doesn't care about you and this and that. And my siblings went with my parents and kind of continued in a downward spiral. Now, I tried to tell my teachers about this. I tried to tell other parents about this. I told my siblings about it. I told my parents about it. And all of them basically looked away from the data. And no changes were forthcoming other than that I was more ostracized, less welcome, not don't talk to me about that. And so that was the only change. And I became bitter, enraged, cynical, right? So so this is kind of the lead up to this first statement in this kind of matrix of hostility, depression, paranoia, and all that, which is part of my identity. So parents will betray their children when expedient. Initial statement, I'm disgusted and angry with Michael and Sherilyn, that's my parents, for training my siblings and I to be dysfunctional, and then shaming us for being dysfunctional. Right? So abstract statement, parents train their children to misbehave and then shame them for it and refuse to own up to their role in it, so that the shame sticks. Like, we have nothing to do with this. We're these perfect, wonderful parents, who send you to Waldorf school and eat vegetarian and study Lazaris. So, that pattern of watching the fear in grown-up people's eyes. I wouldn't call them adults, but grown-ups. Nobody wanted to take a stand for the child because all my siblings needed was to be cared for by someone like me, and things would continue to be better. But there was denial. Then there was denial about the denial. There was abandonment, where there was blaming me for it. There was anything but responding intelligently to the data. So who do I become when I believe that thought? Superior. You fucking assholes, right? You're not even as grown up as your children. So superior, disgusted, separate. I'm better than you. I'm holding with this truth. Go to hell. I'm superior. I'm disgusted with you. I'm separate. I'm angry. I'm sad. Right? Sad for all the kids that are dealing with this kind of stuff. I'm lonely. Nobody wants to talk about it. I'm depressed because the thought keeps going on. I watch my siblings spiral down, into bipolar, into criminal activity, into addiction. And never a single person stands up and tells the truth. And the only person who did, me, got vilified for doing so. And so, and was pushed out further. Tired, suicidal, numb, disconnected, hopeless. It's fucking hopeless. Why even tell another grown-up this story? They never, ever want to hear. Parents don't want to hear if I see them doing it with their children today, right? They don't want to hear it. So I feel ashamed, right? Ashamed of people for doing this. I feel shamed by people for knowing this. I feel resentful. And I blame other people in the world for this phenomena, right? You're all fucking cowards, every last one of you. You're fucking cowards, right? You won't stand up for a single child. So that's a tightly wound thing. And so that's the data points that spiral into my attachment to this self-referential belief. And I have had parents, not so much recently, but when I was younger, in my 20s or 30s, I wish my kids would be like you. And I never found a single parent who wished their kids would be like me, who was interested in digesting or changing or adopting any of the things that would make them more like me. It's like, I wish my pancakes turned out like your pancakes. Well, would you like to know the recipe? No. Would you, you're putting the flour like this and this and this, and I'm doing it like this. That's why my pancakes turn this way. Would you like to change the way you're making pancakes so that they'll turn out this way? No, I want to make the pancakes my way, but I want them to turn out your way. And so people are insane. People are delusional. People are betraying their children. People are cowards, right? This matrix of, and it's all, depressing, isolating, horrible, etc. So here's what's so interesting and exciting about the work, because as you can see, I'm hook, line, and sinker bought into that whole matrix. The whole world is filled with cowards. I could walk to any one of my neighbors and find some crappy thing the parents are doing, and not one of them would, be interested in understanding all this and put their children above their own, expedient patterns, right? I've never met one. And so, so I don't want to have children in such a world. I don't want to participate in such a world. It's just sickening. I don't want to. It's sickening. I don't want to do it. And so that's the situation. And I have nowhere to go with that. Like, meaning if I go into the room of beliefs with Lazaris and say, parents love their children, parents betray their children. Yeah, you can play around with semantics, but there's no big shift. There's no big shift. Now, so here's what happens when I do the actual work. So the first thing, right? So parents train their children to misbehave and then shame them for it, and don't want to own up about their role. So the first, is it true? No. Right? That's not true. Right? So I'm believing it, but it's not true. So there's a change there. It's not true. I tune in. That's not it. It's not true. But I'm not listening to that. I'm listening to a rational correlation created by my ego. Right? My ego says, why would they do that? Must be this, must be that. But then I listen inside, no, it's not true. And I think, I don't think that is the structure. Meaning, I don't think that that's what parents are thinking. I'm betraying my child because I'm a coward, and that's fine with me, right? So it might be something more like people are frightened of the unknown. They've learned a dysfunctional parental technique from their parents, of course, and doing anything different exposes them to the unknown. Or it might be something like there's too much change happening in the world. I don't want to change or experiment with another thing, so I'm going to do everything I can the way I've always done it, right? So I'm taking this correlation and I'm turning it into the evil, the evil of people. But when I check inside, no, it's not true. No. Can I absolutely know that that's true? No. Right? So just there's a tremendous opening up, like 40% space, right? So then I explore, who do I become when I believe that thought? We've gone into that, right? Superior, disgusted, separate, etc. Tremendously arrogant and superior, right? You're all losers, right? But I'm taking a stand, right? So, I realized that a tremendous amount of my matrix of, depressing misery, and part of that identity is that experience of watching all of the different ways where I was blocked and pushed aside as I tried to advocate for my siblings, and all of the ways that I was, pushed by my siblings and my parents and the Christians and the neighbors and the Waldorf parents and the Waldorf, said no. And so, I just decided they were all in on it, right? That they're all, every last one of them, putting their kids on the chopping block to be chopped up into mincemeat because they don't want to feel bad. They don't want to look at something. And so, slaughter the kids, basically. And so, it's just incredibly painful. Now, when I look at who would I be if I did not believe the thought that parents train their kids to do this and then so that they can shame them and then not own up on it. I feel peaceful, loving, understanding, joyful, kind, sacred. And then interesting words coming up, tending life's sacred circle. So I've stopped tending the circle, right? That's one of my natures, right, as a spiritual being, to tend the circle, right? To guard the circle. Seeing the beauty of life. I've stopped that role because I'm fixated on a lie that I created in my adolescence to understand why every single person I went to for help or to talk refused to do anything that would help my siblings. And my siblings defend my parents to this day while still suffering, various issues, as do I. So that was interesting. The next thought is there a stress-free reason to believe this thought? So we'll go back to the thought. Parents train their children to misbehave and then shame them for it and don't want to own up. So is there a stress-free reason to believe that thought? Absolutely not. It makes my blood boil, And I also realized that they're all punishing reasons, right? I have punished people, parents, myself, the world. I have punished with that attachment to that belief. From the moment I looked down at my father for not looking me in the eye and acknowledging just how devastating his impact was being, from that moment, I have punished my father and my mother, right? My mother for not even being worth the effort to try and communicate. She would make up so much nonsense, which, if she was moderately aware, she would understand didn't make any sense, but she wasn't. So it was that much more, irritating to have her believe what she just said, which didn't even make sense from the first part of her sentence wouldn't make sense with the last part of the sentence. So one of them was obviously wrong. And she would look at you like, I've just come up with a masterful defense to verify that I'm right. When all she had done is demonstrated that she was so incoherent she couldn't get the first and last parts of her sentences to say the same thing. Let alone, prove that, abusing her kids was a great idea. So, just disgust, just complete disgust, And so, they're all punishing, right? And depressing, because my siblings didn't want to hear about it either, right? It's like, don't you notice how nice you are when I'm babysitting and how strange you behave around this, and you're drifting downhill and you're losing your sense with your nature, and as I leave the house because I'm sick of it, you're not getting that taste of who you really are. No, we're not gonna do anything other than protect the parental figures, and so I just felt completely excluded from my family. My truth wasn't welcome. And I'm better than all of them, right? Because they're all cowards. Well, that all makes sense, right? Unless I'm looking at the fact that's not true. That's not true. That's a framing of the phenomena. But the framing is incorrect, right? The data is there, the well-behaved but it's not that framing. I don't know quite what to do with that. I just get a clear sense that's not true. But it really hits me when I see that I have sacrificed my own peace, love, understanding, joy, kindness, a sense of the sacred, tending life's sacred circle, respecting and tending the circle, the wheel, being a guardian, seeing the beauty of life. I've given all that up, which is true to my nature, as a payment. I've given that up to hold on to this punishing belief, that this is what parents are doing and ruining their kids. I want none of it. And so that's a huge price to pay, and I had no idea that I had done that. Right? It was not I didn't say I'd like to give up my sacred role and this and that and the other so that I can punish parents for the rest of my life. I I looked at the pattern and I tried to talk with this person and that person and that person, and they'd show anxiety on their face, or they'd say, "Don't talk to your parents like that." I'd say, "What a lame response. This is the best you can do? It's lame." It's like you're all hypocrites. You're all cowards. Right? You're scared of a teenager, 14 years old. You can't even talk. Right? What a sickening world. And so it just, that was the price I ended up paying. And this work exposes that, wow, that's what I gave up in order to hold on to that, right? This small, tight little picture of the whole world being fucked up. That's all I get for giving up who I am, my presence, my identity, and all that. So this is incredibly insightful, right? And so no, there's no stress-free reason to believe the thought. So valid areas with 3 examples where the opposite is true or truer. So parents train their children to misbehave and then shame them for it and don't want to own up. Parents do not train their children to misbehave and then shame them for it and then don't want to own up. So I looked at, I trained a child to behave well and also owned up about my role. My parents trained me to be polite and appreciated me for it several times. Many parents train their children to be successful and celebrate their successes. And I am quite successful, learning from my father to read books, invest, discover Lazaris, and more. So, and I've been praised for that. And so this is all areas where the exact opposite is true. And the 3 examples to anchor in the other point of view is really an important part of this technology. So finally, we go into, I never want to experience this again. So what's the worst thing? Feeling enraged that parents refuse to change, won't listen to data, and continue practices which seem to bring out the worst in their children without taking any responsibility. I never want to feel that way again. I never want to look and say, oh, they're doing it again. I don't want to feel that way, right? And so part of, this process of making peace and loving what is to turn that around. Like I am willing to, I look forward to experiencing feeling enraged that parents refuse to change, et cetera, right? I look forward to that because I'm going to spin that story in my head and feel those feelings again. When I do, I can come back and do the work again and remember who I am. Remember what I lost when I attached to that thought. So what have you lost? What thoughts are you attached to that you have all the evidence for that you've never checked in? Is that really the way to frame it? Is that really true? What have you lost? Who would you be without that thought? Because what is clear to me is that, first of all, if you look deeply into language, all thought is resting on the foundation of language. All language is an illusion. It's a symbolic representation. It's not real. So the only use of a thought is to bring about sustainable well-being. If it doesn't do that, if a thought causes chronic, unnecessary suffering and does nothing, right? All I've done is blamed parents in the world for this for 40 years. It hasn't done anything. It's not like I've healed the planet or anything with this thought. So if it's an illusion, if it's a symbol, and it doesn't lead to anything good, then it's not a very useful illusion and symbol, right? And if the price is I give up peace, joy, things that could bring about sustainable well-being, then it's a good thought to stop believing. So, no, that's not true. I don't know exactly what is true, but that's not true. And I know when I let go of it, there's peace, there's joy, there's love, there's understanding, I can start tending life's sacred circle and learning about that side of my possibility field, right? So, blessings. Good luck. It's a powerful technology. It's 100% free. It improves my life 30% every time I do it. And thank you for watching.